Hey everyone, thank you for joining me again today. Today we're going to do another tracing video, this time of Berlin. And I know a lot of you have come here for some of the more historic content, and I promise we'll get back to that next week. But today we're in the middle of a heat wave, and I figured I need something a little easier on my brain, so we'll just do a bit of city tracing. And I think there are a couple of really interesting details here with Berlin, which is the capital of Germany after all. Big city, plenty of history. And I also have this cute little book here, which is about East Berlin in alten Ansichten. So old views of East Berlin. But we'll get to that in a minute. I think we'll start off with a map of the city and some details. And the first thing I noticed with this book here is that we have a really modern building on the front cover. I think if this were about Vienna, you would probably play around with some more cliched views of the imperial city. But Berlin's a bit different in that regard, I guess. And we have an explanation right here. It says transparent democracy. We're having a view of the area with the parliament, where the government's at home. And this is the Reichstagkuppel, illuminated. But I'd like to have a quick look at this part here. You can see the bear of Berlin. And in German, it sounds a bit similar. A small bear is a Bärlein, and the city is called Berlin. And there, you could think that these are related, that maybe the city has its name from a little bear, but the bear actually came later because of the similarity in sounds. Berlin actually is a Slavic word and means a place in the wetlands or in a marsh, so not necessarily a very pleasant area to build your city. And in fact, Berlin goes back to two different ones, Köln and Berlin, which are from the end of the 12th century, and both were trading posts from German groups. Nearby there were two different Slavic settlements along the river, the Spree, which are Spandau and Köpenick, today both part of Berlin. There are 3.7 million inhabitants today, so quite a large city. You have a sizable group with Turkish roots, 140,000 people, and there are people from over 180 different states. Berlin has 39 universities, almost 200,000 students, and tourism is quite an important sector. So I guess if you want to go to Berlin as a tourist, there's plenty to see and plenty of things being offered. In fact, there's a saying that Berlin has more museums than rainy days. So you might have to squeeze 2 museums into one rainy day, I guess is what that says. let's open the map. So we can immediately see the center of the city right here, Mitte. And then we have a couple of the outer districts here as well. Let's briefly have a look at what they're called. So we have Berlin Mitte. To the north there's Pankow, Lichtenberg, Marzahn-Hellersdorf, Treptow-Köpenick, Neukölln, Tempelhof-Schöneberg, Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg, Steglitz-Zehlendorf, Charlottenburg-Wilmersdorf, Spandau and Reinickendorf. And you can see there are quite a lot of bodies of water here. We have the Müggelsee in the east, as well as Langersee, which means long lake. That's what it looks like. Sedinsee, Zeutener See. And then on the other side we have the Tegeler See, a little further north, next to the airport Berlin-Tegel. Here we have Havel and Großer Wannsee. So I have an idea where most people from Berlin are probably spending the time right now, if they're having similar temperatures to around here. And then of course, through the center of the city we have the Spree. Which comes in from this side, past Kreuzberg, where we have the Eastern train station. Around here we can see that it takes two different branches. One a little further south and one north, around the Museum Island, Museumsinsel. And then we're moving along out of the inner center, past the Tiergarten, which we have here. So we're just meandering along, past the Schlossgarten and then leaving the map. We also have a couple of other waterways which I think are mainly for ships. There's some harbors here, Westhafen, and we also have the canal down here, Schifffahrtkanal, Landwehrkanal, Urbanhafen. See, past the new National Gallery, Bauhausarchiv, a little island in the center, and we're joining this Spree right here near Karlstraße, Himholtstraße. The other thing that I found quite noticeable when you look at Berlin is that you can't really tell where it was divided, and that's something I find quite impressive. The Berlin Wall split East Berlin from West Berlin for quite a long time. It was from 1961 to about 1990, and it would have gone right through here, through this area. You can still tell in some parts, for example, some of the names. Here we have Rosa-Luxemburg-Platz. There's a picture in here of a statue of Marx and Engels. Let's see, where was that? Right here. At the Marx Engels Forum. So that would be right in the historic center near the Red City Hall in the Nikolai Quarter. So there are traces, of course, but just looking at the map, you have to look quite closely. So if you're moving up here, you can tell there's Panorama, die Mauer, the wall. There's a museum, House am Checkpoint Charlie. So a museum of Checkpoint Charlie, which would have been here, where you could cross from one side to the other. But then next to it you also have the German curry sausage museum. So, a wild mix. Let's see. Oh, there was one other little detail I found quite funny, because this is clearly a map for tourists coming to Berlin. You know, to just look at some museums, enjoy themselves, but maybe you also want to visit the tax office, which is right here, Finanzamt. Who knows, could be an important point, depending on what your plans are in Berlin. If we're looking at the center, you can see that one of the main connections here is Unter den Linden. It's quite a large road. There used to be the castle over here. I hope I remember this correctly, but we can see it says Schlossplatz. There's another castle in the name. Here's the Marx Engels Forum, where you would have the statue of the two. But from the historic castle, which doesn't stand anymore, Emperor William would sometimes go take a horse and then ride down under the trees of Unter den Linden, past the Brandenburger Tor, and then get to the Tiergarten, so this large open area here. Where again you have a small lake with a cafe next to it. Academy of Arts, House of Cultures of the World, a bell tower. There's some goldfish here if you want to spend your time just watching the fish. That's quite relaxing too. Then of course you can just wander around and follow these little waterways past the Rousseau Island. The building we saw earlier on the cover would be here. So we have the underground station Bundestag, and then here, that's the Bundestag. across the Spree here on a bridge with a second building and the Reichstag. Right here is the cathedral. We have one of the universities here. Here's the library. And then there's one museum after the other. I'd particularly like to visit the Pergamon Museum. But there's also a gallery with art from the 19th century, a DDR museum, so of East Germany. Here would be the City Hall. And here, this is also quite interesting, Hackische Höfe. These are from around 1900. Very, very beautiful. These were quite forward-thinking, basically, with the idea that you would have both art and also light, air into every place, every single apartment. Some of them have lost their facades in the meantime, unfortunately, but they've been revitalized, and I think they're really, really interesting. I'd love to visit these too. And if we look through here, we can see some of these images. I got this one in second hand. Someone sold it online. And there's a little detail I want to show you. When I opened it, I found this page marker with a 4-leaf clover. How cute is that? So there's a little bit of good luck for us. The interesting part about this book here, it's from the 1970s. And I read through the introduction and I get the impression that there was really a lot of nostalgia for what Berlin was previously, especially during the era of William, so around 1900 roughly. And you can see here with this first picture, it's almost like a dream. With these flowers, and you can just see in the far distance the castle of the king. Here's the monument to Emperor William with an angel of peace walking alongside the horse. Right here we have the cathedral, which at the time was the highest building, and you can climb up to a height of 90 meters where there's a lantern, and then you can look out across Berlin. That was the highest point of view. Some of the bridges dating back to the 17th century, so it had to be rebuilt at some point. Another one here from the early 19th century. This is another one of those fun facts that Berlin has more bridges than Venice. And I think I've mentioned this before. This is really fascinating to me. Here, the library, which we've just mentioned, here in the center. I think it should be this one. if you've been to Vienna, this might look a little familiar. So there's some obvious differences. But this was built after a plan for the Hofburg in Vienna. The Hofburg is where the Habsburgs stayed and ruled, and the complex didn't really have a nice entrance from the side of the city. So the idea was to build basically this exact structure. It has an additional cupola here on top and a bit more curvature. The plan is from the late 18th century, and it wasn't built until about 100 years later in Vienna. So in fact the original is younger than the copy that's in Berlin. I think that's a really curious fact, but one that I found really fascinating. Here we have the Café Bauer, a coffee house. It says the glass walls could be opened during the summertime, and the walls are full of artful paintings. It has an international reputation. It's open day and night, and no stranger should leave Berlin without having paid it a visit. And then, of course, here's the Emperor. A particularly exciting experience to see the Emperor riding über die Linden in the morning. You can see everyone taking off their hat to greet the Emperor, of course. So there's a lot of nostalgia in this little book for the period of about 1900. You can see a lot of these really, really beautiful illustrations. But then if we go a bit further, we can also find some simpler parts of the city, like this Bauernschank. So the Emperor probably didn't come here, but everyone seemed to have a really nice time. Plenty of wine, it seems. And if we skip ahead, we can see here an airfield with a crowd lining the sides. Curious to see what's happening. We can see the public baths, a paradise garden. There's a dance hall there and a concert garden. This one was created in 1885 to develop the sport in Berlin. But today you also have the opportunity to visit one of the restaurants. There's quite a lot of people there since it's a beautiful place here by sun and water. So yeah, all of these places look very, very inviting. They're probably quite nice at this time of year. We also have the Sternwarte. So you can watch the stars, an observatory. And again, just people going for a walk in Treptow. Along the left side of the river, where you have cafes where you can sit outside, villas, plenty of shade. There's concerts, fireworks. You can go for a boat ride. So anyone would love to visit it. One of the villas we can see here, Villa Siemens. And plenty of other views. This is quite interesting too. It says französische Kolonistenhäuser an der Dorfstraße. Das ist in Berlin-Buchholz. And in 1688, quite a lot of French people came here. They were Calvinists and were driven out of France, which was Catholic, while Berlin was a city of the Reformation. The people were Lutheran here and not Calvinist. But these French refugees were welcomed and they built these cute little houses here. So I think that's a really fascinating view and quite a different view of the city too than what you would expect from a book from the 1970s. So no brutalist buildings, but rather a little nostalgia. Alright, and I think we will leave it at that today. And next week we're going to explore another city, but through a little more historic point of view. I hope I'll see you then, and for today, thank you for watching and good night.